So, what is a MOGRT? MOGRTs made their debut in April of 2017, and although they've been around for 6 years, I still get questions about what they are and how to use them. So, I want to dive in and talk a little bit about the capabilities of using MOGRTs. I recently had a client tell me that they leveraged the heck out of my MOGRT over the course of a season, and that is exactly what a MOGRT is set up to do. It's a templated asset that you can leverage over the course of the season. Now, if you're interested in learning more about how to import and edit a MOGRT, I have a different video that I'll leave in the description below. So, what is a MOGRT? A MOGRT stands for Motion Graphic Template. You're taking the first couple letters of each of those words and putting them together to make MOGRT. A MOGRT, in simple terms, is a file made from an After Effects project that has the intention of being updated and edited within Premiere Pro. It's a workflow for a motion designer and an editor to work hand in hand without the editor needing any motion design capabilities on their end. I use MOGRTs even within my own workflow when creating these tutorials. I have a text keyboard shortcut callout, I have an end graphic, and I have a couple other graphics that you've seen come up with numbers or my brief, and all of those are based on a MOGRT. So I will be showcasing how I've set some of those up to be able to use those more efficiently within my edit. And some of you have asked about templates for sale. So in addition to the tutorial MOGRTs that I've created, I'm going to showcase what's available on ballereffects.com and open up some of those MOGRTs within Premiere Pro so you can also get an idea of some of the capabilities that can be added into a MOGRT to make the editor's life easier. So let's jump in and look at the different ways that we can leverage a MOGRT within Premiere. Let's talk about all the things we can do here. I'm going to start with a simple text-based MOGRT here, created in After Effects, exported with the text properties font enabled so that you can adjust that within Premiere. So we can change this to something else random. Pick something that has some different weights. Regular italic. All right, we can play with our font size. All right, and this animation seed, when it comes on, it starts in a certain place. So this slider's in here to help make adjustments for that. So this is probably the most basic kind of MOGRT that you're gonna see. Just very simple. Drop it on the timeline, make a couple quick adjustments, change the text every time, and you quickly have an asset that you can update right within your timeline in Premiere. All right, so let's jump into this recap. So this is a MOGRT that I use at the end of all my tutorials, and I use it because it's automated. I'm just going in and changing the text, and the line under the text is updated based on the length of the text. So let's go ahead and update. And while we're here, let's talk about some of the limitations of MOGRTs. One of them is that third parties aren't included. And if I click off, third-party effects are not embedded into a MOGRT file. So if you do use third-party effects, make sure that the end user also has those same exact effects installed on their machine that they're editing on. Otherwise, things will break. All right, another limitation is file size. Max of 1 gig in library, 300 megabits recommended. Yeah, it went off the edge. So if you want to use these MOGRTs in your Creative Cloud library, they need to be under a gig. A gig is still going to be a little slow when you import it and drop it on your timeline. It's going to take a minute to load. If it's under 300 megabits, it should move fairly quickly. So let me pull up my list here, and you can see my file sizes. The largest one I have is this basketball stats graphic at 133 megabits. A lot of these, especially if they're just text-based, are super tiny. Kilobits worth of size here. So my starting 5, that's a lot of text. Some expressions that probably drove this up a little bit. Starting picture has an image embedded, so that's 4 megs. And my title card that we'll cover next is also larger, but still super tiny at 34 megs. And that's mostly because of how I rigged it up. And these are both text-based and are going to fly when we drop those on. Any updates we make, they'll happen super quick. All right. If it's not in AE, it will not appear in Premiere. If you don't set it up within After Effects Essential Graphics panel, you're not going to see it over here in the Premiere Essential Graphics panel. Pretty straightforward, but still wanted to call that out. So this workflow, MOGRTs from AE to Premiere, is this workflow that I've been talking about. And if you want to use MOGRTs inside of something like Adobe Rush, you actually have to create those MOGRTs in Premiere in order to get them to work inside of Rush. These MOGRTs in AE only work in Premiere. I'm assuming this would be most people's workflow, so that's what I am covering. So now that we have our list, this last one that's coming on is one that we didn't do and not included. So I'm just going to go up here and change this to limit it to 4. So it only goes down to 4 bullets no matter how long this is. It's just going to hold and maintain there, but my background's still moving. So that is helpful. So let's jump into this last one because this is one where it's going to transfer across multiple formats. So right now I have this set for 16:9, and my text asks about your favorite Valentine's Day candy. And again, we have the same text properties. I've already covered that, so I'm not going to cover that there. I've added a couple of different adjustments in here. So this one is going to be your leading or your line spacing. You need to adjust that. Your Y position overall adjustment. And the reason for that is if you have something that is, I'm just going to copy and paste and paste. If you have something much longer, you might want to raise it up a little bit so that it stays centered in your comp. So these sliders are easy to use and give you flexibility without having to go back to a motion designer to update those. I'm going to change this back. Just get rid of this. Click off of that. And so I also have this transition time effect, which is based on 1 second is one number here. So if I go to the point where this transition comes in, and then I go back to 21 seconds, it disappears. But if I make this number -1, it appears. But if I click in here and go back 1 frame, it's not there. So this transition time effect allows the editor some flexibility as well, because if the text is much longer, the editor is going to want to make the transition come in much later so that the viewer has plenty of time to read what this title says. And conversely, if it's shorter, you can get out of it a little bit quicker. And making this an easy UI element makes this really easy for the editor to keep chugging along at this. And the other benefit here is, let me jump into my 9:16 here, and let's start with the same exact asset. This is only one MOGRT, and I just wanted to set it up into a 9:16 comp to show you this. So I had created this with the idea that we wanted this to span multiple formats, and this would even work in a square format. So I have this checkbox up here at the top called horizontal vertical, And if I check this, you're going to see the formatting of the text change so that it fits more of a social friendly width. Now I can do the same exact thing. I can add more text. And when I click off, it makes it longer. And I also have a Y adjustment, which is going to move everything up or down. Transition time offset also plays here as well. So this is a great way to show that creating one MOGRT has many advantages, and there's different ways to set this up. I could change this into a drop-down and make it give you an option for square. Different ways to approach this based on how you would like to use it. All right, I also have, this is my keyboard call out. Let me make sure it's centered here. And my keyboard call out that I use in the tutorials flexes based on the width of the longest text layer here. So if I just get rid of these elements and click off, it's going to shrink, but only to the point where it still encompasses this bottom layer. So I have plenty of flexibility here to adjust this. If I add a couple more letters here, it's going to extend based on the longest width of these texts. So that is helpful for me to be able to just take this and use it wherever I want in my tutorials and not have to worry about fashioning the width or making that adjustment every single time. I do also want to call out that you'll notice that this file has an audio track with it. And that's because I have sound effects that I added to this file within After Effects, and the audio is on. If you don't want an audio track, you just have to turn the audio off within After Effects. All right, I've gotten a lot of questions about this, the Celtics content that I have on the site. So I figured I'd jump in and show you quickly what this looks like for the team that I created it for. So we had different decades for the 75th anniversary that we wanted to showcase. So all of these assets are already embedded. And since I was working directly with them and we knew all the players on the team that were going to be on the team and we had all their assets, it was easier to just embed it all to make this a much easier process. So if I switch this to 70s, you're going to see the background update and the card update. And let's say right now Tatum is player 3. If we wanted to make that brown, that's quick and easy. And if I click over to a different one, different player. So this is Grant, he's here. Let's say we want to make this one Tatum. And it's just going to quickly update. So now someone can go through and make these quick adjustments, set the ins and outs, and render to MP4 as quick as they can make these adjustments. So you close the gap on the amount of time and energy that you put into rendering these graphics because you put in all this work on the front end.